1,500 hours. The Greenland coast. A remote monitoring outpost on the ice shelf registers a pressure wave before the sound arrives. The signature of a thermobaric detonation designed to eliminate a forward sensor node rather than a military target. The explosion converts a NATO early warning station into a column of black smoke visible from the GIUK gap. Before the debris has finished falling, 8 Arktika-class nuclear-powered icebreakers are underway from Murmansk on a heading that points directly at the maritime corridor connecting North America to Europe. Moscow has made its opening move. To understand what an Arktika-class icebreaker represents as a military instrument, you need to step back from the idea of a ship and think about a statement. These are 33,500-ton vessels powered by twin RITM, 200 nuclear reactors producing 80 megawatts of thermal output and translating that into 60 megawatts of shaft power. Enough to break through 3 meters of Arctic sea ice at continuous forward speed. The hull is designed specifically to resist the compressive loads that destroy conventional vessels. They are not fast and they are not armed in any conventional sense, but they do not need to be either of those things to accomplish what Moscow is using them for. What they are is large, nuclear-powered, and capable of operating in an environment where the United States currently has no equivalent asset. The U.S. polar icebreaker fleet is aging, undermanned, and unable to project into the high Arctic with the sustained presence that Russian doctrine is now exploiting. That imbalance is not a secret. Russian military planners have been working with it as a given for a decade, and the Kremlin's confidence as the Arktika formation pushes into Greenland's exclusive economic zone is grounded in that calculation. They are confident. They are also being tracked by systems they cannot detect in a digital environment they do not control, along a route whose endpoint has already been selected by someone other than the Russian admiral. The USS Donald Cook, an Arleigh Burke-class Flight 2 A-guided missile destroyer, has been holding MCON Phase 3 for 48 hours. No active radar emissions, no radio transmissions, no electronic signature that the Arktika formation sensors can distinguish from background noise. A Virginia-class attack submarine is running parallel below the thermocline at minimum power. Together, they have been building an acoustic library of the Russian formation since it cleared the Kola Fjord. Blade rate signatures for each icebreaker's propellers, reactor coolant pump cycling frequencies, the specific harmonic profile of RITM 200 plants under varying load conditions. That library has been transmitted via burst communication to 6th Fleet Command and cross-indexed with existing intelligence on the class. The Russian formation is not navigating the Arctic, it is being catalogued while it believes it is navigating the Arctic. For the past 48 hours, every transmission the Arktika fleet has made, positioning updates, intership coordination traffic, the encrypted command bursts that coordinate the formation's movement, has been collected by a P-8A Poseidon operating at altitude, and by signals intelligence satellites with collection geometry over the operating area. The collection has not been passive archiving, it has been real-time analyses feeding a picture of the Russian fleet's command architecture. Which ships communicate with which, on what frequencies, with what encryption protocols, at what intervals. That architecture is about to become the mechanism of the fleet's own defeat. The navigation software running on the lead Arktika vessel's bridge systems contains a vulnerability that did not arrive through hostile intrusion. It arrived through the supply chain, a legitimate software update from a legitimate third-party contractor whose relationships with Western technical services created a pathway that took years to establish and seconds to activate. The backdoor is not crude. It does not crash systems or generate obvious error messages. It introduces a drift into GPS positional data, small enough that the crew attributes it to the magnetic anomaly conditions that are genuinely common in high-latitude Arctic operations, large enough that the fleet's actual track diverges from the track displayed on the bridge. The P-8A overhead is not just collecting, it is now the coordination point for a positional deception operation running inside the Russian fleet's own navigation architecture. The Arktika formation believes it is following a route its commanders selected. The route it is actually following has been adjusted by a system the crew cannot see toward a destination they have not chosen. At what point in a naval confrontation does control of an adversary's navigation data become more decisive than any weapon system either side carries? The Arctic operation is about to answer that question in real time. Tell us your read below. As the deception operation steers the formation toward its prepared outcome, the electronic environment around the Russian ships begins to populate with contacts that the Arktika's sensor operators cannot resolve into coherent tracks. XQ-58, A Valkyrie autonomous air vehicles, low observable, AI piloted, capable of sustained operation without the communication links that betray conventional drones, are weaving an interference pattern through the airspace above the formation. They are not jamming in the conventional sense. They are introducing carefully structured noise into specific frequency bands, creating the radar picture of a threat environment the Russian operators cannot map or dismiss. The Valkyries are not carrying weapons. They are carrying sensors and emitters, and the AI TIE managing their flight paths is running a continuous optimization against a single objective. Ensure that every retreat vector the Russian formation might calculate is either blocked by apparent threat presence or leads the formation deeper into the positional deception envelope. 1,000 possible Russian response routes have been modeled. Each one has been assigned a digital countermeasure. The Arctica formation has choices. Every choice leads to the same outcome. A single transmission reaches the lead Icebreakers bridge on its internal command frequency, a frequency the crew considered secure. The message is brief. Your position is known, your route is controlled, stand down your formation. The Russian admiral's response is to order the formation to hold position and await instructions from Northern Fleet Command. That order is correct. What the admiral does not yet know is that holding position is exactly what the Frostbite Protocol requires. The directed energy array at Thule Air Base, upgraded as part of the Arctic defense infrastructure expansion that the Greenland monitoring station attack was intended to interrupt, was brought online 6 hours ago. It does not fire kinetic projectiles. It does not generate the electromagnetic pulse that science fiction attributes to energy weapons. What it generates is focused high-frequency microwave energy directed at the water immediately surrounding the Arctica formation's propellers and rudders. Water exposed to focused microwave energy at sufficient power levels experiences localized heating, but the Arctic Sea around the formation is at temperatures where the thermal equilibrium of the water column is already near phase transition. The directed energy does not heat the water. It disrupts the molecular structure of the boundary layer around the propeller assemblies, triggering flash crystallization of the surrounding water into a mechanical ice matrix that forms around moving components faster than the propulsion systems can overcome. In 60 seconds, 8 nuclear-powered icebreakers, vessels designed to break ice from the outside, find themselves encased in ice generated against their own mechanical interfaces from within the water column. The propellers cannot turn, the rudders cannot move. 33,500 tons of Russian strategic asset per hull, stationary in the middle of the GIUK gap, unable to maneuver under their own power. The Kremlin's response is immediate and demonstrates exactly how thoroughly the operation has succeeded. The Russian admiral activates international distress protocols, a Mayday broadcast on all emergency frequencies, citing sudden nuclear propulsion anomalies and catastrophic mechanical failure, requesting international rescue assistance under the law of the Sea Convention. Russian state media receives the footage within minutes. Sailors on the deck of an icebreaker in Arctic conditions, framed as victims of American aggression and illegal weapons used against civilian maritime infrastructure. It is a well-constructed legal move. If the United States is positioned as the aggressor against a vessel claiming distress, the diplomatic framework shifts. America either assists a nuclear vessel whose condition it caused, or it refuses assistance and accepts the international narrative that follows. Washington's response to the Mayday is a single sentence released through official channels. The Russian formation appears to have encountered severe mechanical difficulties consistent with extreme Arctic weather conditions. The United States is monitoring the situation and stands ready to observe any international investigation. Not a denial, not an acknowledgement. A statement that creates legal distance without providing the confirmation Moscow's state media needs to build its narrative. The distress call is frantic in a way that goes beyond the mechanical situation it describes, and Western signals intelligence analysts processing the communication traffic from the frozen formation are the first to understand why. The Arctica icebreakers were not on this route carrying ballast and crew. The mission profile, the timing, the route selection, the thermobaric strike on the monitoring station is consistent with a deployment operation for the Poseidon II M39 nuclear-powered autonomous torpedo. The Poseidon is a strategic deterrence system designed to be positioned in deep water trenches at extended range from its targets, where it can wait in low-power dormancy until activated. The Greenland trench system provides exactly the geological cover and depth required. 8 Arctica-class vessels operating in formation provide the acoustic mass to mask the deployment of the docking systems during transit. The distress call is frantic because the deployment bay doors on the lead vessel are not responding to unlock commands from the Russian crew. The back door that drifted the fleet's navigation data contained a second protocol triggered by the frostbite activation. The docking bay mechanical controls are locked from within the vessel's own software. Inaccessible to the crew, inaccessible to Northern Fleet Command's override system, and currently receiving a new set of authoritative commands from a source outside Russian encryption. Moscow is not trying to rescue sailors. Moscow is trying to recover control of strategic assets that are physically present inside Russian hulls and no longer responding to Russian commands. The Poseidon guidance systems, while still physically secured inside the Icebreakers bays, are being accessed through the same software vulnerability that controlled the navigation drift. The specific technical outcome of that access is not something Washington will publicly describe. What the Russian admiral's communication traffic makes clear is that the telemetry his crew is receiving from those systems no longer matches what Northern Fleet's monitoring stations are showing. Russia sent 8 nuclear icebreakers into the GIUK gap to plant doomsday weapons in America's approach corridor. They are currently sitting motionless in Arctic ice, their strategic payloads outside their control, their distress broadcasts being documented by every NATO intelligence asset in the region, and their mechanical situation requiring a tow response that will take days to organize and execute through waters that NATO patrols. The Russian admiral came to hold the Atlantic hostage. He is currently waiting for a tugboat. Look at what this operation cost each side. Russia expended the strategic initiative of 8 of its most capable surface vessels, revealed the existence of its Poseidon deployment operation in the GIUK gap through the nature of the distress communications, provided Western intelligence with the complete electronic and acoustic signature library of the Arctica class at operational settings, and demonstrated the specific software supply chain pathway that its naval systems trusted. The cost of the directed energy activation, the Valkyrie deployment, the P-8A operation, and the signals intelligence collection was a fraction of the cost of a single Arctica hull. The lesson Moscow is processing is the same lesson that emerges from every engagement in this series. Point weapons, the biggest icebreaker hull, the most capable submarine, the most powerful torpedo, are only decisive if the information environment in which they operate is reliable. When the navigation data is compromised, when the communication channels are monitored, when the software running mission-critical systems contains pathways its operators did not install, the point weapon becomes a liability rather than an asset. The Arctica formation's size and nuclear power made it the most visible, most trackable, and most vulnerable element of the entire operation. Russia brought the largest ships in any nation's fleet into a contested area and discovered that size is a targeting advantage for the other side. The Arctic belongs to whoever can operate reliably in its information environment. Russia built the hardware to operate in its geography. The United States built the network to control its information layer. In 2026, those are not equivalent investments. The question that follows from Baffin Bay and the GIUK operation is the one strategic planners in Moscow cannot avoid. If the software supply chain for Russian naval systems has been compromised at the level this operation demonstrated, how many other platforms are running code with pathways the architects did not install? The Arctica answer came at the cost of one failed operation. Finding the answer for other systems may cost considerably more. Leave your analysis in the comments.